Hello and welcome to something a little bit different. World of Warcraft is a game I have spent literally thousands of hours in, and with the release of the latest content patch including new zones of Nagi Tatar and Mechagon, I want to go through and chronicle some of my favourite zones throughout the game, because I think the theming of Nagi Tatar really is quite spectacular. So I just want to go through my top 10 favourite zones in this game and talk about why they are as good as they are and my own personal memories within them. 10! I would be remiss if I didn't include Elwyn Forest in this list. I mean, first of all, I'm a sucker for a good, kind of vanilla-style fantasy forest. I think most people are, that's kind of why it exists in so many, variations in media. But also, this is kind of like, if you ever looked at World of Warcraft as a game in the media, in advertisements, in, anything else like that, you would probably see gameplay of someone playing through Elwyn Forest. And, if you just want to quickly try out the game for a spin, it's got a free level 20 thing or whatever. A lot of people are just going to quickly make like a human whatever just to quickly jump in and see how it feels, and Elwyn Forest is going to be one of the first places you go. For me, it epitomizes the kind of start of the game. Even though I main a Night Elf, and I've always kind of mained a Night Elf, I originally brought my Night Elf over from Teldrassil to go and quest in Elwyn Forest, and it's just full of a lot of memories for me. And even though it is aging nowadays, it's always going to be a place that I look on fondly and sometimes just go and visit and just enjoy. 9! So my alliance bias is starting to show here, but for my final classic zone of the list, I think it's my final classic zone, yes it is Dunmoreau, because it's another zone which I've just spent a lot of time in over the years. It's another zone that kind of feels like the start of a game for me, and in Dunmoreau in particular there is something incredibly atmospheric about the music in that zone, and I have memories of questing through that zone at like midnight, by myself, just kind of like soaking in the atmosphere and stuff. It was one of my first kind of jaw-dropping wow moments in this game of like, wow, I enjoy existing here, not just playing the game, but existing as a character within this universe. 8! The first Horde character I have ever made has been lost to time, but they were a Blood Elf, and Eversong Forest blew me away. It's a Burning Crusade starter zone, so they might have like learned from lessons in previous, like in the vanilla experience, but something about this zone is just gorgeous. Even though graphically maybe it doesn't hold up nowadays, it really paints a picture of a kind of the contextual world of a Blood Elf, and just like the music especially really kind of sets it apart from other just kind of like, I mean, I was talking about Elwyn Forest earlier as your kind of cliche fantasy forest. This is another fantasy forest, and it feels like it's got a completely different identity to Elwyn Forest. So I just really appreciate it for that, and it's another zone which I'm always tempted, like if I'm away from the game for a certain amount of time, one of the things that compels me to come back is the idea of making a new character. I am a bit of an altaholic. I do like to start lots of different alts, and there are certain starting zones which I think about that made me go, man, this is making me want to play the game again. And yeah, this Eversong Woods is one of those zones. 7! Now, I'm not a huge desert guy, but Vol'dun is easily my favourite desert in the game, and perhaps one of my favourite deserts in video games in general. Now, this is one of the latest zones in the latest expansion, Battle for Azeroth, and it's a Horde zone because they have different continents in this expansion, for anyone who's not aware. And the funny thing is, I haven't actually leveled a Horde character yet, so I don't particularly know what the story is in this zone. I haven't got a lot of questing experience in this zone, but purely from an Alliance character standpoint of coming over and doing world quests, I have always loved my time in Vol'dun. Just, I don't know, something about the way they constructed the environment, with the kind of like the jagged rocks and like the just swathes of like, I don't know, sand dunes and stuff. It's good. That's it feels, I don't know, it feels more jagged than other deserts in a weird way. Like the creatures are all quite spiky and everything, and it's just aesthetically pleasing to me in a way I can't quite put words to, which is a good thing considering I'm trying to make a video where I put words to why I like zones. Also, it has the Val'Sharah, so that's a thing. 6! Suramar is quite a unique zone as far as World of Warcraft goes, because it wasn't made to level through and it wasn't part of a patch update. It was it was launch content for Legion, but it was made to be played after you hit max level, and it didn't give any kind of gear rewards or anything like that. It was purely story based. It was still part of the overall metagame, like you had to do the quest to unlock reputation, but it was definitely something different. It was an experiment. It was a bigger focus on narrative, and it was really fucking cool. The zone itself is really kind of unique. It has loads of really nice colours, and the city of Suramar is the grandest city I've seen in the game. And it would be amazing. I remember thinking as I was playing through it for the first time, it would be amazing if you could see cities like Stormwind like recreated at that scale. My only real complaint was that it was maybe a little bit too crowded in the city, and it made questing through it quite a pain at times. 5. Nagrand. Well, Burning Crusade Nagrand specifically, because that's the one with floating islands, and oh my god, it was... So, you know how I said I've got kind of a thing for like fantasy forests and stuff? It's not necessarily a forest, it's more rolling grassy plains, but with the whole aesthetic of Outland being like this alien world that's kind of like in the twisting nether, so you know it's got demons and stuff, and then it's got kind of weirdly mutated creatures and like magical anomalies and stuff, so you've got floating grassy islands in the sky. There's a lot of love I hold for Outland as a continent in particular, but specifically Nagrand I think is the highlight of the entire thing. And when they remade it in Draenor, it was really cool to go back and see what it was like back when it was an actual planet that hadn't been exploded. But I still think I'm going to go with the Burning Crusade version just for the whole aesthetic of that amazing, beautiful looking grasslands and that skybox. Holy shit, that skybox. For Talador. Okay, so Warlords of Draenor is a universally hated expansion for not having enough content. But artistically, I think it might be my favourite one. Story-wise, it is what Terracar Forest was before it became Terracar Forest, and it is just pleasing to the eye. It is a very magically, you know, it's another forest, it's a very magically kind of enhanced forest with like the Draenei live there, and they've got kind of like their own setup stuff throughout there, and it's very similar to Shadowmoon Valley, which I'll get to in a bit, spoilers, but it's got more of a brighter aesthetic. And I don't know, it's just like if Shadowmoon Valley is purple, then Talador is orange, and like if one's dusk the other is dawn. Like I love both zones quite a lot. It is a damn shame they didn't do more with Shattrath, and I think that might be something they learned from considering what they did with Suramar in the, you know, next expansion. 3. So I made a druid, so Val'Sharah was kind of a big deal. I mean, not kind of a big deal, because it felt like kind of new lore. I don't know if it was new lore, but it was definitely not that present in lore before, if not. But it is just like the epitome of what a beautiful, unspoiled forest can be in a fantasy setting. And the story within that zone, because as the expansions went on they became more and more narrative focused, the story within that zone is very much druid focused, and it had a lot of stuff regarding the Emerald Dream, which is something players have been wondering about for years now. And I read a whole book which was, what was it called? It was called Storm Rage, I think. It was based on the Emerald Dream, and it kind of led on, this zone kind of led on from the events of that book and went over them a little bit more. And yeah, I just had a really fun time playing it. It was also the first zone I played in Legion, which is the best expansion I've ever played, so, you know, fond memories and all that. 2. Nagi Tatar was released about a week ago, and it is my second favourite zone in all of World of Warcraft, and I was not expecting that. When they mentioned that 8.2 was going to be dealing with Queen Azshara and we'd be visiting Nagi Tatar and all of that stuff, I kind of thought, oh, that's kind of lame, you know. Nagi Tatar is this like big Warcraft character, and she's kind of, it seems like, I haven't played the raid, I don't know what's going to happen, but it seems like her whole story is kind of going to be shoehorned into this one patch. But I was actually really surprised by the amount of narrative content they fit into this place, and this zone is entirely my aesthetic. And no, it's not a forest, but my favourite Pixar movie is Finding Nemo, and I think that influenced me growing up, because I've just always liked, you know, underwater sea stuff. And it's not something I think about a lot, so whenever I see it, I'm always like, oh yeah, but like the kind of deep blues and stuff, and just the general kind of sea life, it's amazing. And the soundtrack there is really atmospheric, and it's probably my favourite soundtrack in the game since Dun Moreau. So yeah, I'm enjoying my time there quite a lot. I don't think this is like a honeymoon period kind of thing, because I didn't even go into it like, I can't wait for this new patch. It was more, oh cool, a new patch. And, you know, daily quests, I've definitely kind of seen what there is to offer. I've already done the bulk of the narrative content there, but I'm still loving just existing in that environment, and it's just a whale of a time. No pun intended. Teldrassil. I am a night elf, and... Sorry, what's that? Sylvanas did what? To shreds, you say? Well, in that case... I'm gonna get lynched for this, but my favourite zone is a Warlords of Draenor zone. Universally hated expansion, but Shadowmoon Valley, That is the zone which you set up your garrison in if you're an Alliance player, which I've proved quite heavily in this video that I am. It is a take on what Shadowmoon Valley looked like before the events of the Burning Crusade, back like 30 years or before or whatever. It is the height of the Draenor, I wouldn't say empire, but where they live during that time period, and I've always loved the aesthetic of Draenor homes, and like they're very kind of like sci-fi in a fantasy world, which is interesting. But just the zone itself it's so purple. It is so purple, and I quite like the colour purple. And it's just interesting to see all of these creatures from Outland up-resed and redesigned, and they look really cool. The story there I really enjoyed at the time as well. One of the high points of Warlords of Draenor was the narrative content within the zones. Not so much after 6.0 though. It kind of went to shit then. But even though I did go a little bit insane rotting in my garrison for 2 years, I still love that zone, and every time I go back there it is a joy. I go back there, sometimes I just go to my garrison because as much as I hated rotting there for 2 years with not much to do, I do have fond memories of that zone, and it's just pretty to look at, and I can't go on about it enough without repeating myself. But if you haven't been to Shadowmoon Valley and Warlords of Draenor anytime recently, let me just give you a recommender. And again, the I forget what it's called, the place before the Black Temple, the Temple of Karabor, I think. They didn't really do anything with that. It was going to be like the main Alliance city before they made some really bad decisions design-wise. If it was the Alliance city, I think it would have been great. But it's a shame they didn't do more with that. But it's just cool to just walk around there and take in the sights. So there you have it, a question that's been burning on everyone's minds, one of my top 10 favourite World of Warcraft zones. You might be wondering why there's no zones from Wrath of the Lich King or Cataclysm here. It's probably just because I didn't play them at the time. I don't really have any fond memories of those zones. I just kind of leveled through them multiple times. Also, Mr. Pandaria zones, I did enjoy those zones. They are very pretty and gorgeous and stuff, but they just weren't in my top 10, I guess. Maybe my top 20, maybe my top 15. But yeah. This was a different kind of video for me. Like, I do edited videos already, but they're normally in the form of sticking gameplay clips together. This was more going out and filming B-roll and, you know, presenting it in a way that was entertaining and made sense. So if it was a little janky or weird, I apologise for that. It will be a learning process. If you did like it, make sure to let me know, because I will be thinking about making more videos like this in future. Not necessarily top 10s, I've heard that's kind of lazy content, but I am just kind of dipping my toes into the water here. For now though, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. I fucking love all of the zones. Like, there's not a single zone in that expansion that I don't really like kind of